Thank you and appreciate you for dialing in and connecting with us, the Mastermind call of the Dreammakers Network. Always exciting to connect with our Dreammakers Network friends and family. For those of you who are on for the first time, welcome. My name is Byron Deese, founder of the Dreammakers Network and CEO of Engage Wealth, and just excited to have this opportunity to have our monthly personal development call with the Mastermind call with the Dreammakers Network. And it's always, I tell you on a personal note, I'm always kind of looking forward to this call because I'm like throughout the days, and when there's something that's noteworthy, I'll take a note and say, all right, remember this for the call, remember that for the call. Cool things that have happened or crazy things that have happened, and for us to kind of talk through and kind of unpack, if you will. But this call and this network is particularly focused on personal development. It is that one time that you can just kind of put aside all of the things that you have to do as a parent, as a spouse, as a child, as a friend, and just kind of pause all of that for a second and come together for the purpose of personal development, just to have a conversation around what it is that we're here to do in this life, what's going on, what's happening with us on a day-to-day, and and begin to connect with other people throughout the country who also have lined up for that particular reason, to say, okay, what's going on with me? What are the things that I'm working on, and why? And not just professionally, but even in your own personal life, and especially if you, from the standpoint of you being able to identify what growth and advancement looks like for you. And we do this as a collective, though, because when two or three people come together in the spirit of harmony, that the collective energy, that collective mind, the collective thought that we have together on that singular objective will help us to advance our positions in ways that we probably wouldn't be able to do it individually. And so we come together on a monthly basis for that purpose, to create a mastermind around a singular objective. And that singular objective is personal development, goals, what it is you're working on and why, and being in a position to always have your thoughts and your energies lined up with progress. We have this one life, so why not use it to advance your position, to advance what it is that you plan to do in this life, to stay intentional and on purpose, and to never find yourself in a position where you're just okay with whatever happens. I know a lot of folks who do say, you know what, it's easier to do that. It's easier just to say whatever happens, happens. But for those of you who said, you know what, I think that it is important for me to make sure I'm living a life of purpose and I feel good about what's happening in my life on a daily basis, and never have those situations where you're saying, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I wish I should have done this. I should have done that. I could have done this, all that jazz, leave that for somebody else. But if there's something in your spirit, there's something on your heart, that's an idea, or, and something that's on your mind that you believe that it's lined up with what it is that you're here to do in this life, then let's just do it. Why not? While we still have, blood flowing through us and breath in our bodies and just being able to be of service, why not? Why not do it? And so we thank you guys for lining up and connecting with us this morning, for dialing in and joining us. And if you're watching us online and social media, we thank you and we hope you connect with us. Please feel free to leave a comment, keep us up to speed on what's going on with you, and we will do the same. And please feel free to go to our website, dreammakersnetwork.org, just to learn more about who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And if you'd love to schedule time just to have a one-on-one conversation about your goals, your plans, your activities, what you're working on, let's do it. We can schedule time on the call on the website as well, at dreammakersnetwork.org. So we thank you for joining us for today's call. Well, listen, folks, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I'm not going to keep you long because I do have to get over to Seminole High School for the Dazzlers competition today, regional competition, which is all day today. But I am very excited to have this call today. And, I want to just kind of recap where we are and where we've been this year as we opened up this year with the work equation. And I will tell you that I felt divinely inspired and at the top of the year with that work equation. We're trying to identify when we're starting something new, what's the formula? What is something that we can use to keep us on message around how do we pursue the goals that we currently have, and what is the process that we can utilize to go through that with an objective of success. And the work equation being outlined as goals plus risk times faith equals the work. That is the work. To set goals, to take risk, and multiply what you've done with the faith objective that you believe that you will attain it, even though you have not yet made it tangible. But in your mind, it's very real. In your mind, in your spirit, and just your abilities to your willingness to continue to go on, it is real to you. Goals plus risk times faith equals the work. And I always want to make sure that we reiterate that and we actually remind ourselves that that's what the process that we're using. And this, I will say, as we have reached the month of March, this is the third month of this year. Seems like we're flying through 2026 already. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm like, what happened to February? It just came and went. I still feel like I'm in January, but we are in the month of March, which is actually a good month because it's the month that I was born. And I always enjoy myself in the month of March. It's springtime. I think today is daylight saving, so we're springing ahead tonight. And it does give you something to kind of look forward to as have kind of started your goals for the year. You have, if you stay committed, you've gone through some challenge, if you will, of you've seen some successes. Actually, I can say for myself, I had a goal that I set this year at the beginning of the year, was able to hit that goal this week, thank God, and which really, I will tell you, has helped to add more confidence, I would say, to the goals for the rest of the year. And I think that is the part, when setting a goal, taking risks. And it's like, what were some of the risks that I had to take to accomplish this goal that happened for this year, or this week, I should say. And I think, a lot of times, when we think about risk, it has more to do with doing something that you have, for whatever reason, are avoiding to do, actually doing it, and just kind of ripping past fear, if you will. And I had a really interesting conversation earlier this week with a student, a middle school student, eighth grader, and he interviewed me just about entrepreneurship and learning more about entrepreneurs. And we had a conversation on fear and what is fear and why it does it have power. And it was interesting because one of his questions, was can you explain a time when you were fearful as an entrepreneur, and how did you overcome it? And I'll tell you, first of all, I was so happy to hear the eighth grader ask me that question, because I started thinking about how many other conversations is he having about fear and about how to address fear at that stage of his life. And so it was really, I'll be honest, I mean, I was fired up excited when I heard him ask the question. And some of you guys may have heard me talk about this But I remember it may have been toward the earlier part of us starting this network, and this is our 13th year hosting the Mastermind call. But I remember reading the scripture, and I don't want to get it wrong, but I know it's in the book of Timothy, Second Timothy, that really highlights my viewpoint on fear, and breaking it down, it really highlighted the fact that if I'm afraid, what I'm really saying is that I don't trust God. That I don't trust God to see me through something that I was just kind of naturally afraid of. And if I don't trust God, then that means that I'm not really in relationship with God. And for me, that is just a non-starter. For some people, that might not be a big deal. But for somebody who was, born in the church, hearing scriptures and messages nonstop as a kid, just like so deeply rooted in that foundation of having a relationship with God, that if I'm saying I'm fearful, that means that all of that, all those years, all of the acts, all of the prayers, all of that stuff, grandmama, granddaddy, like all of that, like that is really, for me, it was like me saying all of that was for nothing. That all of the stuff that they did, the prayers, the support, the fasting, all of that, that if I'm still afraid, that means I don't trust God. And if I don't trust God, that means I'm not in a relationship. And if I'm not in a relationship, that means all the stuff they did for me was for nothing. And for me, that was just a non-starter. It was just purely a non-starter. Like I can't feel comfortable in my own skin knowing that that's actually how I feel. That was it for me. And I think we all have to have that non-starter moment. Like, you know what? This is the reason why I'm going to keep moving. This is the reason why I'm going to go ahead and just do that thing anyway. This is the reason why. And you got to get your reason. You got to get that. You got to figure that out to make it where fear is just not, I will say, because fear is real, right? So it's not like we're going to act like fear is not real. But one thing that we did talk about with the young brother, I went on to kind of highlight what fear, from my perspective, what fear is. Fear is energy that you can do something with. So I'm afraid, oh my God, I'm so scared of this, like yikes. And you got all these emotions happening and I'm not going to do it. Some people just completely cave and some people pass out. They're so afraid, and I'm like, well, at the end of the day, that's just energy. So what are you going to do with that energy? Are you going to really just succumb to it? Or are you going to use it and transfer that energy into something that you really want to do? And you then have to begin to ask yourself, what do I really, really, really want? And that I could use this energy to help me to attain. And you just kind of have to figure out a way to have those kind of moments where you tell yourself, this is it. Like, I'm going to use this energy to advance what I really want to do and to cut all the, again, like I say, fear is fear. It is what it is. But what you're going to do about it. And so then to be able to practically say, okay, well, if I'm going to use fear as power that I can actually use for something else, then let's start writing down the things that I'm afraid of. What am I afraid of? Write it down. And then you start looking at it and say, why am I afraid of this? Like, where did this even come from? Where was this? A lot of times it has to do with our foundation, like those early years. Something popped up and something happened and it just stuck in your brain and you said, I'm not doing that. Count it. No, not for me. But for the purposes of personal development, we want to be in a position where we're talking about ways to overcome challenges. And more importantly, how do you do that to accomplish the things that you've already set out to do. And so, I want to really spend today's call talking more about how we can, one, put ourselves in a position to use those kind of situations. How do we use energy that we have? First of all, how do we continue to raise our energy, whether it be fearful energy or excited energy or whatever the case? How do we do that and then use that to pursue things that we really want? I talk a lot about in the Law of Success in 16 Lessons, where it outlines how Henry Ford would literally use this whole concept of transmuting energy, where he structured his office in a way where as soon as he walked through the doors, he just had beautiful women on both sides of a long hallway. One side is receptionists, the others workers, and he would just hire a bunch of beautiful women. And every day walk into the office and let that energy become something he could use. And as soon as he got to his office, he'd pick up the phone and call whoever it was he was trying to do business with, because he fired up at that point. His energy is at a high point. Whatever it takes. That was his method, right? So the question is, what's your method? What's your method of getting yourself fired up to do the things that you believe is important for your goals, to accomplish what you set out to do? What's your method? What gets you fired up? And if you're at a point like, I have no clue, like, I don't even know what fires me up. Well, that's part of the process to being in a position where you can begin to point to, this is what makes me happy. This is what makes me excited. This is what makes me mad. This is what makes me sad. Like, just being in that position to start documenting the things that get you going in one frame or another, whether it's getting you excited, happy, sad, mad, pissed off, whatever the case. These are things that make you different. The person sitting next to you, like, why are you upset about that? Like, I'm not upset about it, because they're not you. You're unique in that space. You could be all fired up, excited about something. They're like, why are you excited? Because they're not you. You are unique, but it's important for us to be able to understand our own DNA, if you will. What makes us different? So I tell you, I realized this over the past, say, 3 months or since the new year, that we are really, and I'm speaking directly to the folks who've been a part of this network over the past 10 plus years, we dropped the ball. And I'll take the ownership on this. I dropped the ball because we have some serious folks in this network who are doing amazing things in business and community and ministry and just as a whole. And it's so interesting how I have these conversations with new clients. They're talking about what's going on in their life and their business, what they're trying to accomplish, and this, that, and the other. And so many times I find myself thinking about things that I've heard on this call from folks about what they've done and what they're working on and their expertise on this and that. And I'm like, you need to call this one. You need to call that. Let me send you her information. Let me send you his information. And I think that what I'd love for us to do today, and I'd like to outline this going forward, that we use kind of the last call per quarter going forward to really just talk, to build up the network, if you will. Have us talk through, what are we actively working on right now that is to advance your economic situation, your financial goals. What are you doing right now to it? Whether it be advance your business, whether it be to increase or new positions on the job, or strategic moves that you're working on. So, I just saw someone from the network who's running for a political office. I'm like, yikes. Okay. It's like, I wish I'd have known that in advance, so there are a lot of cool things that are happening. And I want us to be in a position where we kind of have these unfair advantages, right? Because a lot of times folks get started doing things and they do it without making a proper announcement or without communicating with the network first. and go through challenges and unnecessary roadblocks because they hadn't brought the strategy to the network first. And so I want to make sure that we are fully utilizing, whether it be the folks on in this network just to communicate what we're working on. And if it's not someone in the network who can help, somebody more than likely who's within the network can say, you know what, you should call this one, you should call that one. We want to be in a position where we're beginning to align what your goals are, and then just have straight up masterminds on your financial and economic position that's just solely focused on financial growth, wealth creation, advancing your situation. Because I'll tell you, I had a conversation yesterday with some extremely, smart people, done great, but you realize that just in conversation, just in talking about certain money goals and business goals, that sometimes you're just talking to the wrong people, and sometimes you just get bad advice. And then some people have like an actual methodology that they're using that's flawed. And say, well, here's what I religiously do. Here's what I do every day. It's like, okay, cool, let's talk through that. Here's what I do every day. And start going through, and I'm like, where'd you get that method from? Like, it's like, who taught you that? Where'd you get that? Have you seen success? How is it working for you? Well, I think long term it's going to work. I said, okay, got it. All right. So let's talk. Let's unpack a lot of this stuff. And I just, again, I think that we're in a very fortunate position as a group that's been around for a long time at this point, over a decade, 13 years, tried and true practices of advancing our personal situations, our business goals, the whole nine. And this is a good time for us to be intentional, to support each other and strengthen the network, because I'll tell you, it's a lot of power when you're able to walk into a room, hear someone talk about their objectives and what they're trying to accomplish. And then that you're in that room, but you're not just representing yourself. You're representing a coalition. You're representing a network of other like-minded people who are also able to support and add value to whatever that cause is or that objective is. And so I'd like to make this call and have us and take a second and think. I'm sure you guys have already have some things on top of your brain, but I would love to just commit this call in the time that we have left, probably another hour left that we have, to just focus on what are you working on right now to advance your economic situation, to make more money, to increase your wealth position. It's a worthwhile conversation. And then the next question then is, what are you doing? Like, what do you need? What's missing? And which would give us an opportunity to help connect the dots. And at least at the end of the day, now that we've heard it, now that we get it, we hear what it is that you're working on, we see why it's important to your goals, we see why it's part of your goal objective, why you listed it as something that you want to pursue and acquire, then now we can collectively also be in support. We can share that message with someone else. We can say, you know what, I know somebody you should talk to. Hey, I need to do this. So let's meet after the call or whatever. So we want to strengthen the network to not just know that we can come here and share and communicate and get it off our chest, but to also be in lockstep with you as you work daily to advance your economic position, your financial goals. And so I will tell you, I'm just excited to even open that up and what's possible when we begin to start thinking more about economic advancement, wealth creation, and utilizing the network to do it. And so let's take a second. 7:33. Let's take a second. Open up the call now. Anybody who's, number one, want to talk through what's been going on in life and in business, but also if you have a financial goal, economic advancement, something that you're working on right now to increase your financial position. Let's talk it through. I'd love to hear what you're working on and why it's important and how we can begin to support those objectives. So let's take a second and open up the call now. Anybody who'd love to open up and be the first one to talk through this strategy. So we'll open up the call now. All right, I'll be first. I'll tell you, this is a really, I would say, an exciting time. I want to share with everybody. Most of you guys who are on the call know this, but if you're watching for the first time, you may not know that one of my favorite all-time books is The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. And he, same person who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'll tell you, and I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad years ago. And then probably about 10 years ago, I read Cash Flow Quadrant for the first time. And there was something about the way he communicates how we earn money, in that we all don't earn money the same way, and that there are tax implications to how you earn money. And there's certain rules that apply to one quadrant versus the others. And I will tell you, 10 years ago, it really helped to define my personal financial philosophy, if you will, and sharing with clients and to add to their strategy for financial growth. And for me, the combination of understanding the cash flow quadrant, where you earn money, in the employee quadrant, and the self-employed quadrant, the business owner quadrant, and as an investor, combining that with understanding diversification and modern portfolio theory, and not keeping all your eggs in one basket, being in a situation where you understand different asset classes, how you earn income, the purpose of those strategies, and putting yourself in a position to see strategic long-term financial growth, regardless of how much money you make. If somebody says, well, I only make $50,000 a year. Great. How much do you spend? How much of that goes to your lifestyle? Let's see, 65,000. So it's like, all right, at least we've now documented what's coming in and what's going out. And the thing is, you can start the plan at any space, regardless. Where you are is where you are, but where you're trying to go begins the process. And so for folks who are like, well, listen, hey, Deese, that sounds great, but I'm in debt. I'm in like $20,000 worth of debt. Like, how can I even begin to talk about saving money, investing, and all this jazz you're talking about? And, and I look at it like this. We had I was on a panel earlier this week, and it was of our brother Will Holmes, who has his network and does the seminars with different counties throughout the state of Maryland. And we were talking about debt and our philosophies on debt. And I tell people all the time, hey, listen, service the debt, pay the notes, stay out of credit trouble. But I'm not one of those guys who says, hey, go make sure you pay off all your debt first, because, make sure, because some people, it's just like innate. Like maybe they learn from their grandmamas, like, we're going to pay that debt off, baby. Like that. That's what we're going to do, is pay the debt off. But I'm always thinking about, if I have some free cash flow around, I'm putting that towards something that's going to grow at a higher rate of return. Something that I'm going to invest that free cash flow and put as much free cash flow to work as possible. Service the debt, because usually that debt is helping you to advance whatever you're working on. So I'm a strong believer, like, yes, definitely take on debt to help grow what you're doing so you can make more money and create wealth. Pay the note, whatever that agreement is, to make sure you pay that. And then when you get these big windfalls, then you pay off the debt. But to blow up your cash just to pay off debt, like I'm like, well, what investment strategies do you have right now? And if you don't have any, let's talk through some ones that I think would be of value to you, because we want to see your financial position grow versus spending more time working on debt related issues. And so, so I, even in my own business, I think about with Engage Wealth, we're really broken out into business consulting and financial services. And if you really unpack that even further, business consulting for the purpose of growing and selling a company, financial services where we're managing a group of retirement plans and other employee benefits, and just the day-to-day financial services for clients, investments, life insurance, long-term care, even banking services and things like that. So just the day-to-day. And it's one thing I've realized, and those moments when you try to marry your passions with your work, that on just a daily basis, you turn on Facebook and you look and see somebody passed away, and they're trying to raise money to bury the family members. Like, that just irks me to no end, that the average everyday person just doesn't have life insurance to not only to properly bury someone for when they pass away, but I would say more importantly, to be able to pass down wealth to their families, to pay off a mortgage. So now that house is paid off. All you got to do is just take care of the taxes, right? And to keep those assets active and alive. And so many people try to shy away from topics like insurance. But man, it is just one of those things that just hits me at the bottom of my stomach when I turn on and see that someone's trying to piece together some dollars to have a proper funeral. And so these are things that I think is important. That's important to share, spread the news, get life insurance. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can get cheap term insurance. Make sure that is done. Contact me. You can go to my website. You can go to engage-wealth.com. There's an actual link on there. You can click it and you can get a life quote right now. It says life quote on the website, and just put in your information and see how much is there. If you're thinking about this for your parents or for your kids, put the information in. You will see that this is, term coverage, 20-year term, 30-year term. This is inexpensive stuff, so and it's amazing when you think about how life insurance not only is inexpensive, but just that little piece of your financial plan covers future objectives. Sometimes you're supporting college education to grandkids and great grandkids you probably never meet. But that little decision that you did to say, you know what, I'll pay this $14 a month to take care of my situation, but add to the estate, which then supports the future of your family and your interests. We have a campaign right now with Tuskegee, with my university, where we're connecting where folks have in their life insurance policies to support Tuskegee, to leave 25%, 50%, whatever percentage it is. Some folks have just set up life insurance policies just to support the university. One for the family and one for the university. I mean, the thing is, what role do we play in strengthening our interests, our universities, our institutions? Especially in the case of these colleges. These colleges have been around for, in some cases, over 200 years. Tuskegee is heading toward 150 years. These are institutions that we want to be around another 150 years, and so we want to make sure that, particularly, and why it's so important for this call, and that we carve out a point where we just talk through financial growth, financial literacy, financial strategy. Because I'll tell you the truth, man, It's one thing to have our goals and the things that we work on every day, but man, it's a lot better when you can do it without thinking about financial issues. Can I pay my bills? Can I do certain things that I've always wanted to do? Like just being able to solve the financial question. I mean, that point alone, to be able to solve the financial question in your life. Some people shy away from it because it's like, I don't want to think about it because I don't know how to even get me going. It's just going to make me, frustrated or whatever the case may be. But all it takes is the first step to say, this is what I want to do and talk it through. Um, I had a conversation 2 weeks ago. Sister has a couple rental properties. Things are heading in the right direction. But sometimes we have investments that we don't really, like we do it. We took the first step and got an investment property or invested in a stock or whatever the case. We started that process of growth but not really knowing how to kick it into gear, how to increase the cash flow coming from your rental properties, how to take advantage of the swings in the stock market when you own a stock, but you're not sure, should you buy now, should you sell, like all of that. Like if you have investments, you want to know how to get them in full gear, how to fully maximize its earning potential. And these are really important conversations, because what we don't want you to do is, first of all, say, I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to do it. And so you just say, the money I make, I spend it, call it a day. So it's like, one of my clients told me, he say, Dees, I know how to make a lot of money and I know how to spend a lot of money. So, so hopefully you can help to intercept some of that and put me in a better situation where 10, 15 years from now, the money that I made is still around. It hadn't been blown. And it's still around, earning interest and serving my goals long term. And that's really the nature of the work that we do, as advisors. But I want to make sure that collectively that we're here to talk through your financial goals. And you can never say, well, I don't have a financial advisor. I don't have time to talk about these topics. We're going to carve out at least one call, I should say at least 4 calls a year here with the Mastermind call and with the Dreammakers Network, just to talk about your financial position and how to advance it and what you're working on to increase your investments and your financial position. So number one, spread the word that Dees can help you with life insurance. Spread the word. These are things that we have to do to make sure that we're supporting our families and folks throughout the community to really build on the economic base of our communities as a whole. And so with that, let's open the call. Anybody have any questions or comments or would like to open up as to what you're working on and how we can be supportive in your financial goals? We'll open up the call now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody. This is Gary Best.
My brother, how you feeling, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, brother. How are you doing? How's the family?
We're at it, man. Full speed ahead today.
Love it, man. Love it. Let me say, man, I am on the website now.
Okay.
Brother, I have been sleeping. I've dropped the ball. I knew you had some things going, but just didn't know exactly. So you will definitely be receiving a call from me soon. And so
let's do it.
So one of the things I've been working on is building another streams of income. Because my goal ultimately is to replace the income I'm making now with more residual and passive methods. Right? So now I'm working 40, 50 hours a week. So if I can cut that to 10, and then I can focus on outcome instead of income. So that's one of the things I'm doing, and I think I'm on the right track. One of the things I'm learning how to do is do calls and puts and stuff like that. So I spend a lot of time websites and online and stuff like that. But I think one of the areas that a couple of areas now that you mentioned, insurance is one, and then the other one is setting up a business structure to protect my asset. One, so I think that's like one of the huge areas that I need to work on. So
because you have a real estate portfolio, right? You have rental properties, right?
Yes, sir.
How many properties do you have right now?
Three. I have 3 properties now.
And they're all being rented?
A couple of different things. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's doing pretty good. Like I know when you were talking about how can you increase the cash flow with those businesses, I was like, yeah, I know there's definitely some things I can do to increase my cash flow there. So yeah, man, you just got me thinking about a lot of things that have been dormant. So I was like, all right, man, it's time to get those things moving. So,
well, I'll tell you this one thing that we should definitely talk about, and this for anybody who has rental properties. And again, let's just talk about rental properties as your real estate portfolio. And we're not talking about your stocks or your mutual funds or your retirement, just what's happening with your real estate portfolio in and of itself. And when you have rentals, then you begin to say, okay, well, what type of real estate do I have? Is it long-term rental property? So somebody's staying and you got one person staying there. Is it a midterm type rental where people are staying there maybe, a couple months at a time? Or is it short-term where it's almost like a little hotel, if you will? Or is it vacation rentals, and it's at a vacation spot and you're having that type of rental strategy. And so the one thing that I always include as you're looking at ways to leverage and grow your real estate is to always think about 1031 exchange opportunities as well. Because meaning that sometimes people say, well, I'll never sell this property. And my question is why? So a lot of times, one thing that when it comes to real estate, a lot of times our investments are very quote unquote intrinsic value. I bought this house, or I inherited this house from my auntie, and I used to, she babysat me here, whatever the case may be. We got a lot of inherited land and properties that we have. But I want to make sure that we think that we include 1031 opportunities, because there could be another investment property, rental property that has greater market value appreciation, and maybe a better property for the purpose of increasing cash flow. So it could be an Airbnb opportunity. So looking at it like for like, if I have a property, say in Baltimore, but I have another one in North Carolina, and the market value is slow on this one, but it's appreciating faster on the other. Did something happen in terms of legislation, or maybe a new company just opened up and they brought a bunch of new employees, and it's transient workers and folks may want to rent the property out. So just really being able to understand the metrics of what's happening and what's increasing the value or what's decreasing the value. And you definitely want to be in a position where if there's something happening in a market that's holding down the value of your property, then that's definitely a 1031 opportunity, because you want to keep your eyes open for other situations where you could sell that property and just send the proceeds to another property. So it's no capital gains taxes on that. So you're able to buy another rental property that may have more market appreciation and could be increase your cash flow through renting it out faster versus the long-term rentals. So, just want to bring in that 1031 conversation as you take a look at all of your rental properties.
Okay, thank you for that. I think I'm okay with where I am with the real estate right now. But just my main thing is, like, should I do a trust? Do I do an see, like I've been like doing a lot of research on it, and I'm getting a lot of conflicting information. So just like knowing, like what I can trust. Like I'm kind of moving on a learning curve of like I'm understanding what I don't know just because I've been just doing a lot of research and asking questions. So so now I want to kind of like hone in and just kind of make some moves off of things and work for somebody I trust who's been around a while. So
well, I'll tell you one thing, one thing to mention, you mentioned concerning trust, and that's a topic that it really gets it can get tricky because, so for instance, for those of us who have life insurance policies and you have retirement plans, the beneficiary section of your trust, I should say, of those policies and retirement accounts, the beneficiary section passes probate. So most people set up, say, like a revocable trust to pass the probate process. So to make sure that you don't have to, if you pass away, you don't have to go to the courts to identify how to distribute those assets. So immediately, if you have funds in a life insurance policy or a retirement account, they automatically pass probate. So there's no need to set up a trust in particular for those assets. Now, if for the purpose of passing probate, now there's also irrevocable trust that definitely could be used not only for wealth management purposes to essentially transfer assets out of your name to another entity. And a lot of times you'll see folks will do that because their financial position has increased so much that they're now saying, okay, I want to reduce my taxation, so I'm going to move this asset from me to the trust, to an irrevocable trust. Now the trust owns it and you don't own it. So when they're looking at your financial position, it has now decreased because the trust owns whatever asset you moved over there. So it's definitely a wealth management strategy, but it's also irrevocable trust setup are available for generational wealth strategies as well. So, you could have a beneficiary of the trust, and you can really detail your language in an irrevocable trust, because you can outline your wants and wishes and speak long after you've passed away, but still administering that trust. So, but that is much more expensive than setting up a revocable trust. So you want to make sure that it's necessary, because to be honest with you, if you have a will, and let's say all of your assets are in retirement plans and life insurance policies, and you have a will, well, at least your financial position will pass the probate process, and then your will is you can be as very detailed as you want in your will to say this is what you want to see happen. So for those who have assets only in life insurance and retirement accounts, make sure you have a will and be as detailed as you can in that will, and that is a great way to kind of button up your estate plan. But for folks who have go for it.
No question. Okay. All right. So I've heard a lot of horror stories about people who get past assets when a loved one dies because other people attempt to come in and try to challenge it, and then you go through probate, and even if you had a will in place, it still kind of stays in the probate and stuff like that. And so now, I was just having this conversation with my mom, and so my mom had some assets that she wanted to pass to me, and I was like, well, let's talk to some attorneys about getting a trust. She's from the old school, like, I don't need no trust. We got a will already. It's only you. I'm like, well. But then I'm hearing all these horror stories where people coming out of the world saying like, well, this person promised me this and that, And so then, you go through the probate. So, I want to like avoid that as much as possible. So that's why I was thinking like, all right, I better start learning about trust and all of that stuff.
I would say the easiest thing to do in that, so number one, to identify where's the money coming from. So if she says, I want you to have X, Y, and Z, if it's like going back to retirement account and life insurance, you just list your name on the beneficiary section and that's going directly to you and it passes probate. But if it's the house and say, I want you to pass this house to you, or she could say, upon my death, I want to sell my house, fair market value, and the proceeds go to my son, and document that in a revocable trust, because again, you want to pass the probate process. So to set up a revocable trust versus an irrevocable trust. And again, a revocable trust is basically just a will that passes the probate process. So, you don't have to worry about going to the probate courts.
Okay.
And just be as detailed as possible in writing those documents. I mean, you can get a kind of when they're drafted, they give you all the legalese and the language that needs to be in there. But when it comes time to say, here's what I want to pass down to this one and that school and this friend and all that, just be as detailed as possible. So it's all documented and it's included in the revocable trust.
Okay, cool. Okay, and the last question, and the last point, like I wanted to ask is like, what about convincing a parent or loved one who is not too familiar with the whole trust process, doesn't trust like attorneys and all that stuff. So how would you what steps or what would you advise to convince someone to even have the conversation about trust and that kind of stuff?
I mean, I'll tell you the truth. That is the work right there. because so many people, some people just don't like talking about this stuff, man. Like they don't like talking about death and all that jazz, but I try my best to make it a current financial planning conversation than estate planning. Financial estate plan is part of a financial planning conversation. So if we keep it as much about the here and now, then folks are more willing to talk about that. And so,
okay, that's a good approach.
Yeah. So, it's just like, hey, mom, so you paid off the house, and it just starts there, right? It's like, well, no, I still owe, I still got about 10 more years left. Okay, got it. Well, think about renting out a room to help pay it off sooner, or like just real quick stuff to talk about. And then that leads to asset transfer, passing it down. Should we transfer the asset before they pass or not? Or is this an estate asset transfer? So just trying to have it, make it as conversational as possible is really I would say my recommendation, to make it more about the financial plan than an estate plan. But you got to have the conversation, and I'm happy. Listen, I will jump on a call with you to talk about it and give stories and all that stuff. I am here for it. 1,000%. If you want to say, hey, Dees, can you jump on a call with me and my mom? Like, I will do that.
Okay, and man, and I love that approach to making it care, because I remember the first time I mentioned the subject, my mom was like, "Are you planning for me to die?" I'm not planning for you to die. That doesn't mean you're like saying that you are ready to die, but it's just planning for like life.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, man. Okay.
Yeah,
all
man.
Right. All right, brother. Thank you very much, man.
All good, man. But I'm glad. And first of all, I appreciate you asking that question and these questions, because I can guarantee the questions that you just asked are questions that other folks are saying. I'm glad he asked it.
Absolutely, Angie. I was just texting you. Like, it's so many things you don't know until you're dealing with it.
Yeah.
And everyone knows I'm the caregiver not by choice, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother she's not interested. I've been trying to talk to these people for the last 15 years about this stuff.
Yeah.
And then my dad up and died. You're like, damn it! All this stuff is it's so raggedy. Yeah. Oh, sweet Jesus. And so just try to like undo and fix and figure and like figure out what needs to happen right now, what needs to happen right now.
Yes.
And how do we plan for longer? And then you have most of our parents grew up with parents who lived through the Depression, so their way of thinking about money is just so different. No matter how much money they saved, my mom, she got more money than everybody in our family, but she is holding on like a miser. I'm like, no, mommy, I think you have enough money to do the things that we need to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So getting them to be able to talk about money, because they weren't raised that way.
Yeah.
And the world has changed over and over again. And so getting them to see, like putting things on paper. When my father first died, I can't tell you how many times we went to the bank. So my mother, and had those people run numbers to essentially show my mother she wasn't going to run out of money. Like she wouldn't buy groceries because she thought she was going to run out of money. And so there's so many layers of things that come out with money because we don't know. And because we don't know, we make bad decisions or no decisions, which become bad decisions. So indecision becomes worse decisions. And like getting the conversation started early is better than having to deal with it when someone is sick or is not mentally competent to hold the conversation. So again, start as early as possible, finding out their medication. Like so many things are not fed amongst parents and children. We need to know all the things. And the earlier you can start having those conversations, the easier it becomes, or the more information you're able to pull out without having somebody that they feel like they have to make a decision in the moment. Like, even visiting, if not assistant care is not for everyone, but going with your people to visit their friends who are in assistant care, so you get an idea of what's out there in the communities that you currently live in, is a way to kind of start exploring what might happen. What happens when you can't take care of your parents or they can't take care of themselves? But you need to have an idea of what the possibilities are, because we live in fear. Again, the conversation started with fear. We make a lot of indecisions because of fear and lack of knowledge. So the more information you have is going to have everything to do with what decisions you can make when you have to make them.
That is 1,000% true. I mean, I'll tell you, I had a meeting a couple weeks ago. This stuff is heavy, because to your earlier point, our parents, our grandparents, their understanding of money came from much different times than we live in. And so topics around investing and estate and savings and spending and all that stuff, it creates anxiety for a lot of families. And I can tell you, I had a conversation recently with multi-millionaires. Now, hear me out. Multi-millionaires earning over $1 million annually. Family, not businesses, just the family, right? They were both of them had very highly concerned about using quote unquote savings money to address some very important issues that needed to be addressed like right now. And instead said, well, you know what? I don't want to touch this money in the bank because I need this money in the bank to be here just in case or whatever case. So what I'm going to do, I recommend we take money from the retirement account and use that money to address. And I'm like, no. Because number one, you're not old enough yet to avoid the penalties of taking money out of a retirement account. So that's number one. And you got liquidity right here. Like, that's the great part. And then the other thing and I think it is important to talk about emergency savings and how much is enough. And I would say, rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months worth of household expenses to be safe. So 3 months of savings to address household expenses. And if you really want to stretch it a bit, say 6 months of household related expenses that should be in a savings account. If you've blown past those numbers, you need to be investing that money. It doesn't need to sit in that account. If you have more than 3 to 6 months of emergency savings, that next dollar above that needs to be in an investment, something that's going to earn you a higher rate of return. And now here's the piece. Investments can be a stock, it can be a mutual fund, it can be a real estate investment, it can be your own business, something that you know and understand to earn additional cash flow, whatever it is. But you don't want to have too much of your emergency, or I should say, too much cash in the bank. You want to have enough there to address your household operations. But then once you get past that, you need to put that money to work in some type of growing investment, whether it be your business or an investment that you know and understand, or work with a financial advisor to help grow those assets, right? So 3 to 6 months, right? Just want to throw that out there. So other folks, it does come down to, again, Tysana, some folks are like, well, I don't know. I think that we need to have as much as possible. And then, okay, well, cool. Let's just say you do have that. Then what's your spending strategy? What percentage of that nest egg you got is committed to monthly spending? Because we got to address the anxiety around spending and potential loss. And this is an important conversation, particularly for retirees, because you may have worked all your years. And Tysana, you highlighted a really good example of where you had a husband and wife, when a spouse passes away, and let's just say during their lifetime, the spouse that passed away was the one who made the most money. And so that person's no longer here. How do we address cash flow now? And my biggest recommendation when it comes to that is just to annuitize it. You get a life insurance policy, annuitize it. Create a pension, basically. So somebody passes away, you get a life insurance policy, you're concerned about income, get an annuity and have it pay you 5%, 10% for the rest of your life. And that way, you have a pension now. Basically, an annuity is an individual pension. So that allows you to have a stream of income for the rest of your life. I mean, I had conversations this week with a brother whose company is doing great. I mean, tens of millions of dollars annual revenue, but he hasn't had any liquidity events, so he hasn't sold any of his shares or anything like that. So essentially his compensation is what the company that he owns pays him, so yeah, so, he's doing well enough to, live a upper middle class life, but he's not independently wealthy. So I just asked him, I said, at what point, what is your goal here? Is your goal to become financially independent? And is that why you're doing this and building this business? And if it is, you could sell the business right now for, $50 million or more, and annuitize that at 5% and live a life beyond your wildest dreams. Is that what you want to do? And I can tell you, he literally said to me, man, I really don't know. I've never thought about it. I've been so just busy building this business and working it that I've never thought about anything other than just working it. And the challenge there, to not think about these types of things, is the fact that just like any investment in business, there are peaks in your business, just like there are peaks in investments. And knowing when your business is at a peak, like when your investments are performing at its peak, what do you do when your business is performing at a peak, or when your investments are performing at a peak? What do? You hold it and hope and pray it stays at its peak forever? Or you strategize, so, well, maybe I should start to have a profit process here where I begin to, sell some shares and begin a strategic exit, or it just being in a position where you're now thinking about, how do I leverage this asset that I've created to address not only your lifestyle goals, but for some folks, generational goals. Now, I will tell you, though, I've had also conversations with folks who, one particular gentleman runs an amazing company, low overhead, high cash flow. At its peak was doing about $25 million a year. And then the profit was probably somewhere around $15 to $20 million in profit because it had a low staff and consulting business. We started talking about just kind of like generational wealth. And he said, I've never thought about that before. He's like, I don't have any kids, not that close with my family, not so, don't have like favorite charities and things like that. Just not something I've ever thought about. And it was so interesting. That was the first time in my career that I've had someone say, I've never thought about that. And all I'm just thinking about is the here and now. And it did open up an opportunity to begin to unpack who he is at his core, outside of the job. Who are you? What are your interests? What matters to you and why? And just beginning to unpack who he is. And it was in that process, not only did he say, you know what, after finishing out through that process, he basically said, man, I think I am ready to retire. And was in his early 50s. Had never thought about it. Was just working, doing his thing. He's like, no, I think I am ready to retire and I'm ready to do something else. And we talked through what that would look like in terms of becoming financially independent, where he'd never have to work again. But then at the same time, he started to talk about causes that actually do matter to him, but he hadn't had time to spend doing any of it and getting involved. So those causes then became part of his financial objective. And so that client went from a retirement client and just managing retirement plans to an exit planning client who literally had dove himself into the excitement of being able to start fresh, a new life, financial independent in his 50s, in his early 50s. And this was 2 years ago. And it's really exciting to see the light bulb go off in somebody's head and to say, this is what I think I really want to spend my time doing. But nobody's ever, took me there to think about it, so there's a lot that can come out of a conversation around financial planning. What it really becomes is more counseling sessions. So, in real counseling sessions about life, about goals, about, wants and wishes. It dives into who we are as a person, as people. And as we begin to say, okay, this is what I'm going to fund and why I'm going to fund this. This is what I'm not going to do. This is how I want to live my life. I live in this big house, but I think I want to scale down, and here's why, and all those types of things. People go through life changes. I tell you, another big point is having conversations with families, with parents who are now empty nesters. They raised these kids over the past 30 years, and now the kids have grown and out of the house, out of college, and they're just looking at each other like, it's like, how? Let me introduce you to myself. Like husband and wife looking at each other like, let me introduce you to who I am now, because I know you remember me, that guy when I was in my 20s. Now I'm 55. This is who I am. Let me introduce you to this guy. Hopefully, you still like me. Because I am this guy and I'm not going back. I'm not going to be 25 ever again. I'm now 55 and getting older. And so those conversations are, just completely life-changing. And sometimes people make the decision to go separate ways just because they're completely saying, hey, we did our job. We raised our kids. We're together, not lined up. But I'm thankful that you were my kid's dad, and have a good life. Kind of that happens. That's a real thing, So, a lot can come out of these financial conversations, because I will say the other thing is what's usually really exciting is to watch families, and particularly parents, and I should give another term, couples, because you'll always be a parent, but you always have to get back to the fact that this was just a boy and a girl who decided to hang out at one point. And then they said, let's just hang out forever. At some point, and you made that decision. And so, but to see couples change their lifestyle after they've raised their kids, and just they go off and do something completely different than what they did for the past 30 years. Like that kind of stuff I think is really exciting. And to be a part of that process to help with the financial strategies around that, and doing it in a tax efficient way, and doing it in a way that still is, valuable to the long-term goals of their financial life and their generational goals, is cool, so I said all that to say, I think it's important to have these conversations. I'm happy to dive into these conversations with you guys, especially as Gary, as we talked about. I mean, sometimes just to have that conversation with a parent, we're in that middle-age space where our parents are now older and we're trying to have a financial talk and they may have figured out their financial philosophy back when they were in their 30s and now they're in their 80s, so my job in that is just to kind of talk through experiences, examples that have worked, examples for folks to consider. And at least even if they don't make a decision, at least they can walk away saying, okay, what Deese did kind of talk to me about some examples and one of those examples I think is something I'm interested in doing, so count me in for that kind of thing, so just to kind of break the ice a little bit and hopefully make some, important financial decisions for your families. So anybody else? Let's open up the call. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this financial conversation and goals that you're working on and tough conversations that you're probably avoiding having with folks? But let's take a second and we'll open the call now. All right. Well, this is good. Listen, I'm glad that I think this is important. And I think that this is something that we will continue going forward. And I would love to kind of talk to you guys about kind of a format to make it much more of a friendly conversation. It may be the case, and kind of Gary, to your point, it may be the case that at least like on once a quarter, we really have this conversation and open it up, to friends and family. Say, hey, join this call this day so we can talk, kind of break the ice on a financial topic that we need to have. And then so invite the parents and sisters and other people who are involved in planning, financial and estate planning, so they can ask questions, or even if they're just going to sit around and listen. But you can also share this call too as well once we finish up, for folks who are interested in learning more. And again, go to the website, the Dreammakers, dreammakersnetwork.org, and you can schedule time to have a sit down, or go to engage-wealth.com. Again, you can set up time for one-on-one conversation if you don't want to kind of talk this stuff, or maybe want to go into a bit more detail. Happy to do that. I think it's important for me, just as a financial professional, to have more conversations like this, because again, folks are just, if you don't have it, it's not going to be had. And also, it's, the financial services industry as a whole, historically has been tricky, particularly for working in middle-class families, because financial advisors are in most cases paid to manage money. And so some folks say, hey, I don't make no money, so I don't have any money for you to manage. So folks will say it's too expensive, or I can't eat. There's no entry point. Because a lot of working class and middle class families, most of their money is in their retirement account. And if you're still working, then your retirement account is still with your 401k. So it's not money you can just kind of take out and bring to an advisor to manage it, and they can kind of start an engagement. And then on the other side of that, folks who there's been challenges over the years because let's just say if the only financial advisor you knew was, say, a life insurance agent. And sometimes the way the business is structured, it becomes very heavy sales oriented. So you could have just agents who are just selling life insurance policies that give you a high commission, but it's not the right solution for every family. And it needs to be a very tailored situation. Like this, the worst thing you want is to have a policy that you don't need, so, and then that for some people, going back to that trust factor, it could very well hurt that person's ability to even want to talk to anybody else about their financial life. And so it's a topic that is, very important, but at the same time, it's not being had enough. So I think for the purposes of this network and building our professional network and personal development, we have to have, be solution oriented in this space to make sure that we're creating a space for folks to feel comfortable, but also really get down to solution oriented type strategies to support families through these types of conversations on money. So anybody else have any questions, comments before we finish up for the day? Brother Morris, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great, man. Sorry, hoping you ain't get on it before I had to move around. The babies. Everybody's asleep on a Saturday. I can't get loud the way I want. I'll be tiptoeing in there. Like, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now I'm out.
That's right.
But yeah, I definitely, it's every time, it's, broke the record, but it's like, sometimes you get on Saturdays, okay, what are we going to do? And then stuff catches you, and you're like, damn, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The what you need portion of it. And, and it's coming from, not from really left field, because, I know what you do, and, and I know what happens, but still, even though, when you first said it, I'm sitting there, and you're like, you know what, we dropped the ball. After 10 years, I'm like, yeah, we did, goddammit, yeah. And then when you describe the people, in the network, and how, and the people that and how, it's not, we're not doing enough of this. Doing the other side of what a mastermind is, which is, bringing something to the mastermind and then allowing those minds to really concentrate and assist in that one specific area.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put free format, I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I know the format is not one that, it lends itself always to that particular thing, because we open it up to everybody. Yeah. But still, with the network and put it on here, and the ones that we know, you can do that. And then to apply the financial piece to it is just it's always important. So so I wanted to put my cash app out there and just, with all these people that are on here, just, send me $1,500. All of y'all send me $1,500. I don't need financial advice. I'm good. So it's at Paz.
That's right. Yeah. So since we're talking money, y'all talking money?
Exactly.
Send me.
Use your network.
I love this network. Please send me $1,000 to $cash.
10 years. I'm doing this. R&D. 10 years. I'm not good for $1,000.
I'm not good for $1,000.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'll be so excited to get on. I'm sorry. Let me get mine. Byron's been very helpful in this financial thing, I feel blessed and lucky that as far as the conversation with dealing with people who are getting older, and my mother is at least interested and open because my grandparents weren't. You know what I'm saying? So she through that in essence and was she lived a life that I think pretty close to what Tom Sanders living right now, where she had to take care of it. Parent, the difference was, we were in Baltimore, and that parent of hers, and my grandfather was in New York. So, so the back and forth and figuring out, a care and all kinds of things. And money wasn't a huge issue, but figuring out what to do with the amount of money was an issue. You know what I'm saying? It's not a substitute, but it was like, well, we got this. What are we supposed to do with that? What do we do? This state versus that state. So my mother now has become more interested in that, and we have those conversations, I just feel good that and grateful that I'm not quite in that situation. But what it's done is put more pressure on me to make sure even earlier that I'm savvy with what I'm doing with my family. So I'm running around here like almost like I'm the Christ. Like, hey man, when I die, I will rise again. Don't worry about it. That's not the case. Where is your insurance policy? So I've been buying insurance. I've bought insurance policies and all this kind of stuff, and making sure that all of our stuff is in line if I do happen to just go out randomly. And in doing that, I've run into those policies that, because I want to layer them with a little bit of business acumen. Not just I don't want to say not just, but there's different types of insurance, things, or just not strategies, but different types of policies that you can do different things with, right? So, got one, just the regular one, the one that, pays out. And then there's the other kind that's supposed to be able to borrow against and all that. And so I bought one of those a while ago. And then, I've just been dumping, sending money to it in hopes that it'll do what they said it's supposed to do. And that is like, I draw cash from it and all that. But I wanted you to, if you could, just discuss a little bit about those two different things. Not talking about it afterwards, but that's where I am, because I want to be able to leverage that to to go into business, to do business moves. I want to be able to create other streams, not streams of income, but other ways to fund other funding sources that are more that I have more control over.
There's two things that when I think back. When I originally got licensed back in life insurance license back in '98, and I remember it was during the time A.L. Williams, and which was Primerica, which became A.L. Williams became Primerica, and it was a whole topic on buy term and invest the difference. And what does that mean? It basically means buy term life insurance and invest the difference between the cost of term life versus whole life insurance. And that because whole life was more expensive because it had a cash value account linked to it, savings account linked to it. So you could save money by buying a term policy. And then the theory was you take that savings and put it into a mutual fund. So buy a mutual fund or invest in a mutual fund and do that. And so I remember 1998, got licensed, and that was the song and dance, and so having a conversation with friends and family, buy term, invest the difference, buy term, invest the difference. But now 30 years later, those folks who I was talking to in 1998 and 99, they were in their 30s and 40s then, and now, or even 50s, and now they're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that term life policy is, they kept living, right? So the term life policy is now expired. So, and they're still living. So, hey, Byron, I need to go get some more insurance because I live longer than the term. And so now to try to insure somebody who's 70, 80 years old, good luck finding an insurance company who would do it. So that's why this goes back to, it's so important to structure these types of policies for a person's whole life, if you will. Not to say, hey, buy this whole life policy, but what it really means is sometimes you just have to, if the goal is to buy term and invest the difference, make sure they are investing the difference, because the objective there is, well, once you carried out your 20, 30-year term, you have all this money that you continue to invest in the mutual funds that has now appreciated to the place where you don't need another policy, because there's so much money in your mutual fund that it will pay off your mortgage or whatever the case may be, and be a nice estate plan for your family. So there are a lot of things. So another example of that is like right now, you have different types of life insurance policies, universal life policies, and even the ones that I use with a lot of clients is the IUL, which is a index universal life policy. And so there's a whole host of, and you go on to YouTube or TikTok, anything, folks have, there's a lot of unlicensed financial doctors on there talking about what to do and how to do it and strategize this one over that one and that kind of thing. But even with those type policies, to your point, Pat, so, I'd like to be in a situation where I can utilize it, like the policies with living benefits and things like that. And some of those policies are structured to be overfunded, so if the cost of insurance is, say, $2,000 a year, but to maximize the cash value or the index aspect of that policy, it requires you to overfund it. And let's just say to overfund it, it maxes at like $10,000 or $15,000 a year. If you don't overfund that policy, whatever strategies you had to want to take a loan from it and do different things, there'll be some money in there, but not enough to do the things that you really want to do. So you have to make sure that you tailor a policy that, say, you may not particularly need the big death benefit. So you can reduce your death benefit and create a strategy where you're overfunding the policy so you can increase the value on the index side. So you really have to tailor those type policies to make sure it makes sense for what you're trying to solve for, versus, give me one of those IULs and I'll pay you $2,000 a year. And then, in 10, 15 years, I'm ready to live on that money. And there's not enough saved up, so it's important to comb through these strategies to make it 100% match what it is that matches your financial plan. Because again, that's the one big challenge when it comes to insurance, because folks can get licensed to become an insurance agent and they just sell stuff, but it may not be the best thing for you. So it's important to definitely work with an advisor to strategize it to make it make sense. And then even to the point of, like, for folks who have companies like LLCs, and you're really just playing like the asset protection strategy. So like we had a conversation just yesterday where, some of these guys, their whole financial life is based on their businesses. So they take little income just to take care of their household related needs and things like that. And everything else comes out of the profits of their business. So how much they're going to reinvest into the business for growth, and how much they would take as a cash distribution. So in most cases, you're insuring those assets, like the entities that you have, and assigning, say, a life insurance policy to the entities, and making sure it matches the value of the growth of those businesses. So there's a lot of ways to think about it, and to make sure it's still an active asset protection strategy, not just on your life, but on the life of your assets. So it's a good way to think about what are some other ways to do some advanced planning around your whole investment portfolio, especially for folks who have real estate properties. That's a great one to think about, and especially with the nature of those real estate properties, because again, if you have like a Airbnb, and folks are coming in and out of that thing, every other day. So it increases your liability. So somebody may trip and fall, say, I want to sue you because I fell in your property. You should have had a step here, or whatever the case. You got to be very, strategic how you set those policies. I should say those properties up, because if that stuff is just all in your name, then they're coming for everything, you and any other assets that you have. So you want to make sure that there's some limited liability, some LLCs wrapped on some of these type properties, because it could very well become very, the asset protection part of that and risk management could become a real issue for folks who are, trying to make some extra money doing real estate, but could find themselves in a tricky situation, especially from a legal perspective, when, folks, we live in a very litigious world now. So we got to prepare ourselves for that too. So play that asset protection game. So, but yeah, man.
Definitely. When I ran into that, when I had a lot of properties in the early 2000s, I had a few of them, I was just buying them up. And a couple of them were definitely in my name. So when I got into trying to liquidate and do some things, they started, these properties started coming up. As, well, hey, what about this? Like, what you mean, what about this? It has nothing to do with that. Oh, yes, it does. It's all in your name. You know what I'm saying? So I had to scramble to kind of sell some stuff that I didn't want to sell, on the strength that it was all under my name. So when they looked up everything. So, wow, this is it. So it's definitely real. It's definitely real. And the people who are doing it don't care that you just made one mistake, like, or you didn't sign the right policy. No. I fell at the Airbnb. That's cool, and it was in Denver. But it looked like you had a nice house down there in Florida. We need that.
Yeah.
So I 100% I agree with that, and learn that lesson the hard way, to the tune of multiple thousands of dollars.
Unnecessary. I mean, because setting up an LLC is cheap.
Yep.
So you can just, we got clients we just set up like the LLC under the address. Whatever the address of that property is the address LLC. Now it's incorporated. It's not in your name. And, you can separate that from your own personal activities versus an entity that has assets. So we had a client who ran for political office, but 10 years or 20 years ago, they went into a deal with a guy to buy investment property. And then they did it in their name. And then that guy ended up being kind of a crook. And so, but it's been 20 years since he's seen the guy. He got ready to run for political office, and all these news stories came out about this shady deal and links to this guy. I was like, oh my Lord, like, so it's, again, I think the moral of the story is this stuff requires strategic conversations, career planning, investment planning, financial planning, all this stuff. Like, it requires a strategy. And again, I want to kind of go back to what we talked about on the front end. We have to leverage the network, and we can feel safe to come back to the network to talk through strategy. I mean, we spent the past 13 years being strategic and confidential to focus on your plight, your goals, what you want to see happen in your life, and make these things a reality. And so I don't think we do enough talking about that and how we've committed ourselves to supporting each other's objectives. But when we've been doing this over 13 years now, it's now time to say, all right, let's go deep. Let's go take a deep dive with our members. Let's expand and really be in a position, because again, we're not some professional networking group, that's just kind of passing business cards around. Commitment to personal development is really the core and crux of what we focus on. And yes, business development comes out of that, but also lifelong friendships and extended family comes out of that too. And it's been of great value, for those of us who've been part of this network for over, that amount of time. But I think at this stage of our lives, and it's time to even go further into supporting each other and being strategic. And I just don't want any of you guys doing anything on your own and thinking that it's only you who has to figure this out. And especially going into business by yourself with no strategic support, start it, launch it, don't have the capital to see it through it to the next level, and then get out of business. I had a conversation the other day with a brother who was running a great property management business, and just got burned out. Got burned out and just stopped, closed the doors. And one thing I try to say to anybody who's in business is that if you're producing cash flow in your business, you have an asset that somebody probably may want to buy, because investors are looking for future cash flow. They're looking around for businesses that are currently being operated. And it could be a business that they have interest in. They may like the business itself. They may like the industry, or they just may like your financials. They may just like the fact that your business is making money, and it's not, kind of haphazard money. It's like contract-based money. So the cash flow is coming based on a contract that's legally binding, kind of thing. So before you get burned out, and just say, hey, let me just turn the lights off on this business. Let's have a conversation, because that could very well be a great business that somebody else would buy, give you a liquidity event, and you can have all the relaxed time you need after that. So yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that we're gonna carve out at least one call per quarter just to talk through these types of strategic planning. And I kind of mentioned it earlier on financial, but at the end of the day, it's really just strategic planning. And I think it's important for us as a network to have these types of conversations and to do it openly on our calls, where it's open to the public to kind of learn more about what we're doing and why we do it, and go from there. So anybody else have any questions or comments before we finish up for the day? All right, good people. This has been great. I did blow past my time. I know they already texted me to get over here and get over to the dance performance. So I'm going to get on out of here and support the Dazzlers, Seminole High School today. Good luck to the girls. But listen, go to dreammakersnetwork.org or go to engage-wealth.com. Learn more about what we're doing on both sides. Schedule time. You can click the link to schedule a call, and we can have a one-on-one about these topics specifically. I always like to kind of walk away with a book that we've been reading. I'll tell you, I have been, one book I am reading right now, in addition to some of the others that you guys probably already know about. I talked about Cash Flow Quadrant. Another book that I'm actually reading right now is Beyond 401ks, Small Business Owner's Guide to Deferred Compensation Plan and Retirement Plans, which is, really trying to be more of a consultative resource for a lot of our business clients who are thinking about strategic sales. So I'm taking a deep dive in that. I'm actually back in school, just starting back in school and working on becoming a chartered advisor in philanthropy. So getting a CAP designation. So back in the classroom here. So that's where a lot of my time is going to preparing to become a philanthropic advisor, if you will, which is part of my long-term strategic plan. I love financial services, and I will do it as probably for the rest of my life in some capacity. But I think at the end of the day, my real true goal is just to become a philanthropist for the rest of my life. Make enough money where I can just give it away to the favorite causes and things that matter to me, and kind of double down on those type things. So I'm trying to prepare myself for that future, if you will, and become a philanthropic advisor. So we're all working over here trying to live the best life we can live on this thing. So, but it's all part of the goals that we're outlined here. So, all right, guys, any other questions or comments before we finish up? All right, have a great weekend. Have a beautiful March. My birthday is next week, so I'll be celebrating, or actually not next week, but on the 16th of March. So if y'all want to send me something, please do. I love birthdays. So, all right, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.